Okay, so for the purposes of a webinar, just some functionality is there is two different ways to communicate. The one we prefer you to use is the Q&A when it comes to questions. This helps Alana and I stay organized. So that way, if for some reason there's no way we'll miss your question in a really busy chat. Feel free to use the chat function. You can do that by hitting chat and everybody, and then you could say, hey, commenting or saying I agree or whatever it might be. But from when it comes to question standpoint, we'll miss you if you put it in the Q&A. Alana, anything else on that I missed?
No, I think that's good. As far as questions go, or how the outline of this typically goes, is Luke and I will bring a topic, usually based off of topics that you've submitted. So we go through, and when you get that little survey and it asks, is there anything you want us to talk about? We go through and read those responses. So I think we had like 7 or 8 this week. We go through, if there's repeated topics by multiple people, that usually we're like, oh, okay, we want to tackle that. Or just if there's a topic that comes in that we're ready and we're like, that's a great topic, let's tackle that. Obviously, we don't get to every single topic because we do this once a month and we get an hour, and that hour flies by. But you never know what you're going to get. But we take, give or take, anywhere from 15 minutes to 30 minutes. We bring a topic, we talk about that topic. You throw in questions on that topic as we go. And then sometimes that topic will take the whole hour. If it doesn't, then we just open it up for general Q&A. And it's usually better if you get your topics in earlier than later, just because A, we can combine them together, and B, we tend to get a ton of topics right at the last minute as we're finishing up. We don't have a hard fast on the hour. Typically we'll go 5 to 10 minutes over if we need to, but usually we're wrapping it up around an hour and 10 minutes.
Okay, so I was talking on mute. Done that like a million times. All right, Alana, you want to bring up the topic, then I'll address it first to help my brain. Do you mind?
Yeah, sure. So looking through the topics, and this is something Luke and I are pretty passionate about, is a couple people requested that we talk about full disclosures, a little bit about what they are, the purpose of them, and especially what do we do after full disclosure. A lot of times, and what the heck a full disclosure even is if you're new here. But a lot of times with full disclosures, we get so much prepare to this big event of this full disclosure. And then what? We don't talk a whole lot about what it looks like after, what that work looks like. And a lot of times when I'm working with people who have learned about full disclosures, it almost becomes in their mind this magical tool that they'll get to this magical place of, we do this really hard thing, we do this full disclosure, and now it's going to get better. Now we got through the hard, now it's going to get easier. And I want to just start us there, that there's no magic pill. There's no turning point that you just get to this one spot and now everything shifts and changes and it gets easier. It's healing, and healing is a slow, gradual process. And so we'll talk more about what post-disclosure healing looks like too. But I think, Luke, we start with what the heck even is a full disclosure? Why do we do it?
Yeah. Okay. That's great. And it kind of reminds me, Alana, as you were talking, so many versions of the journey feel like that, but like, okay, if I can get this part out of the way, that means we've made it, or everything's going to be okay. And it kind of reminds me of separations, out of home separations, when the man is invited or ends up coming back to the home of, that's actually one of the more, that's part that he needs to show up with his stuff together even more, because that's where it can go sideways, because now he's back in the home and there can be triggers. And even though there's a lot of good days, there can be some tough ones. So, and that's one of the things Alana and I want to do, is we want to kind of tell you what the milestones are along the journey and what to watch out for. So, and I think we've done a lot of that in the past. Okay, so what is a full disclosure? A full disclosure, often called a therapeutic full disclosure, where a therapist is involved. What is the smile for?
Sorry, I was just reading the questions, and someone, I'll just read the question so you don't think I'm weirdly smiling. So my first question is for Luke. Why do you go by Luke and not Lucas? And
Oh,
there's a whole story around recovery with that. And so that's what I was just smiling about. So I apologize. Keep going.
I
We'll
was
get to that question. It's a great question.
I was like, what did I say? I was like, I had no idea what I said.
No.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get to that one. All right. So, um, full disclosures are an opportunity to get where there's been a lot of lying, a lot of manipulation, a lot of just lack of truth. It's just clarity around, specifically for the betrayed, for the woman, a chance to know what truth is through the entire relationship. And actually, we even go back to prior to before they were even married. So she can really hear truth, but also understand the extent of what she's dealing with or what situation she's going to be in. So she can make a choice on whether she actually wants to continue in the relationship and to what extent she wants to be in the relationship after that is done. We've Go ahead.
And I'll just specify they. It could be either partner.
Yeah, thank you.
Generally speaking, we work with women who are betrayed, generally speaking, but I've dealt with lots of men who are betrayed too. So
And
it can go either way.
I'll probably get off track a little bit, but one of the things that happens is usually we have what's called the dribble effect, like the D-Day where gets caught, partial truth comes out, and then you have her getting beat up over and over and over again by digging and going like, hey, what about this? What about that? And he thinks, like me, that, oh, if I share the really, really big stuff, then none of the other stuff matters. And that's not even close to true. So she's like, hey, what about this? What about that? And then stuff comes out a little bit at the time. And it's just really, really painful for her. And, you know, not very, I mean, it's painful for both. So therapeutic full disclosure is something where it's just, there's a process, it's professionally handled. We actually called it planned trauma, where, and that sounds so silly, I get it. Planned trauma is in, we're actually going to go to this experience, this event, and it's going to be traumatic. It can be traumatic, but it's on purpose so truth can finally come out, and in a way, and it can all be in one organized manner. Anyway, any thoughts on that, Alana, before I go on?
Yeah. The whole reason on why we do it, just like you said, Luke, is there's so many lies that happen not only between the partners, the person who's been acting out secretly. There's that lying, that hiding. Often there's minimization. There's justifying, and so we have that. But then also with themselves, for the person who has acted outside of their own values, they've had to minimize and deny and justify with themselves. And then we even bring in like that component of the shame, and the shame of, well, if people really knew me, then they couldn't love me. They wouldn't love me. And that compounds everything else. And so part of that full disclosure is not just for the partner who's been betrayed, but also for the partner who's acted outside of their values. It's for both of them, and it's for the relationship, because ideally what we want to have come forward is enough time done with a professional that the person who's acted outside of their value can really do the work to understand what was happening, why it happened, all of the details that kind of led into that. The thing with the full disclosure that gets tricky is we don't want to wait on a full disclosure for a significant amount of time. We don't want a full disclosure that takes a year to do. In some cases we do, and I'll explain that in a minute. We don't want it to take forever, but we also don't want to do it really rushed and really quick. If we do it too rushed, then we might miss key parts, key details. That dribble effect, Luke, that you talked about, so common because with a lot of those pieces, shoved it down, shoved it down and suppressed it so deep that we ourselves have it so locked up on that shelf that I can't tell you how many times I've had the acting out partner go, oh crap, I just remembered this. I forgot to tell him this. So when
Can I
you're
jump in
working,
there?
yeah.
not more significant than the heavy other stuff. Okay. So it's not like, oh, I remember this and it's like the biggest thing on the list or the most damaging thing on the list. It's similar to the other experiences, but just because of the amount of content that something gets missed.
Well, and here's the thing is you don't know how your partner is going to respond and what becomes big things. Because for some partners, that there is a piece of information that on the surface looks little, but it is connected in such a way that it is actually huge.
Yeah.
It feels so big. And so the person who's acted out goes, okay, I told you about all of this and you're freaking out about this. I don't get it. And there's always a reason, but that's why we have to be so careful is we cannot try to tell a betrayed partner what they should feel or shouldn't feel or what they are feeling. And we can't tell them what will impact them or what won't. What we can do is we can give the truth and we can give information. So just really quick with the timelines, we don't want to do it too quick. So we rush through things, but we want to not leave that betrayed partner just hanging and waiting for answers, waiting for information. Times where I've done it longer is if the person who has betrayed their partner, if it's already been, they've been working recovery for like 4 or 5 years, and the partner says, you know what, we never did a full disclosure, but I actually really need it. I'm okay waiting a little bit longer to get more thorough because they've already talked about a lot of the stuff. That I'm okay. I will not even discuss doing a full disclosure if we don't have sobriety and some level of safety and stability created first. So I might push a disclosure back if we don't have safety and stability. Doesn't mean stability like the relationship is perfect, but if I have active abuse happening, if they're still active acting out, that's not a time to be doing a disclosure. Not a full therapeutic one.
Yeah. Okay. I'm
Can
just
I add to that at all?
I'm just listening to you. I'm kind of like soaking it up. So I don't think I have anything else to add to that. Maybe just to build upon one thing you already said, just to for the men is they usually show up going, excuse me, for the person who did the betraying, they usually show up and go, yeah, the other person wants it. I'm willing to do it. Let's go. I don't want to do it, but I'm willing to give the disclosure. And then it's really cool. And I'm not often refer to him or he when I talk about the person that did the betraying, but for him, recognizing that it's not always that way. For him, he's doing it for the other person to like give truth because he's showing up humble and he's submissive. But what I've noticed is he has no idea that a good portion of this is just for him, and the fact of he gets a chance to go through and hear truth come out of his mouth and really learn to value himself and separate himself from his choices. It's a big part of the journey. And that usually doesn't show up for a little while because he usually hates himself as much or maybe even more as he relives so much of it. But it's really beautiful because after the experience, you just see him have a new relationship with himself because he wasn't, anyway, I'll stop there.
Well, so let's talk about then briefly what the actual full disclosure looks like. So that was kind of the why. Good question came in that said, is a full disclosure typically needed in all relationships that are trying to heal, or is it sometimes not needed? Every answer when it comes to this kind of stuff will always be, every answer will be, it depends. Every situation will have its own nuances. Every situation will be unique. I think generally it can be really healing to have a full disclosure, but I don't think they're needed in absolutely every case. And so I think that's really good. Even meeting with somebody, with a professional who specializes and is trained in disclosures. Can't tell you how many horror stories I've heard on disclosures with professionals who aren't trained. So please make sure you're working with people who have the proper training. But I've had some people where after we went back and forth and discussed it, we decided based off of your unique situation, we could absolutely, and there could be some benefit from it, but I don't think we necessarily need it. So what does your gut say? What is your gut telling you? And others, other couples we've worked with, it's absolutely a full disclosure would be incredibly healing for both of you, or maybe just one of you. But we need to have everyone on the same page if we're going to do it. Doesn't mean you have to be excited to do it and you're loving it, but all have to be in agreement to do it.
I'll tell you,
It's a hard process.
I owned everything in my process of coming clean with Alana. And when my therapist said, hey, full disclosure and polygraph, I was like, I don't want to do it. And I did not hide anything. There was nothing hiding, there was nothing, but I was scared to death that that if I just own everything all at once with Alana, that's just another one of the million things I thought would be the nail in the coffin, and if I went through the process of verifying truth that, that I would actually not be lying and that it would be considered lying, that people wouldn't believe me. I was just like, I was so scared of that. So scared.
I love that you bring that up, because I can't tell you how many individuals I've worked with who say that exact thing. So I want betrayed partners to hear this, that this is real and legit. And a lot of times you can't hear it because you're pain. I could not hear this for a long time. But there's such a fear that this will be the straw that breaks the camel's back. This will be the nail in the coffin, that there is so much fear of, if I make one wrong move, that it's all over. And a lot of times I'll see the partner who acted out become almost paralyzed of like, well, I'm going to go quiet. I'm going to do nothing wrong. I'm going to try to not rock the boat. But in not rocking the boat, you have this betrayed partner who's like shaking them, like, talk to me, emotionally connect with me, be there with me. But they can't hear that because of their own pain and their own fear. So I appreciate you bringing up that piece.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's not for everybody, right? And men, you don't get to decide whether it's for the person who acted out. You don't get to decide whether it's right for your partner or not. They get to decide that. So don't take that from them.
Okay, so the actual disclosure process, preparing for a full disclosure, Luke, what do you do to prepare an individual who's acted outside of their marriage? How do you prepare them for the full disclosure?
Okay, so we have, what we do is we prepare 3 documents. One is a disclosure statement. This is the lion's share of the work. I'd say 80% of it, which is a history. It's facts. Okay, it's the facts. It's no emotions, no feelings, just facts, and it's prepared chronologically. There's certain information that we say, hey, include this, include this, include this. And then what we do is I work one-on-one with somebody or others. I'm just explaining the way that happens when I'm working with somebody, is we spend time going through that. And then there's part number 2, which is a safety plan, which is once behavior's been recognized, seen as it is, there's a safety plan put into place to present. And then the last thing is there's an impact letter. The impact letter is how the person that acted out sees the impact that that's had on their partner. Not that they will get it, not that they will understand it or see the impact, but it's how they see it. So their partner gets a chance to say, this is how it actually impacted me. It's important. Okay, so those 3 things are prepared over a period of time. The person that was betrayed gets a chance to submit questions to the person that acted out, all the things that they want to know, and that's built into the timeline or built into the disclosure statement. Then at that point in time, there's the person that's acted out and the therapist / coach, and the person that was betrayed and therapist / coach. The 4 of them meet together for about 2 hours, and the information is shared. A very, 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 very impactful experience. Like, Alana and I have absolutely been so, I don't know, just so proud and impressed with the people that show up on both sides to go through that healing part of the journey and the experience. So Alana, that's what's on my mind. What did I miss?
Well, I want to talk about the betrayed side, and I'll kind of jump in and fill in here, but for the person who has betrayed, creating those 3 documents and sharing those 3 documents, what are the real benefits of doing that?
So the benefit for the person who did the acting out is they get a chance to be completely seen, completely vulnerable, and they get a chance to accept themselves and separate their choices from their identity. Okay. And that doesn't happen like right away, but through that process, that's the benefit. And it's amazing and that experience. The benefit for the spouse or for the person that was betrayed is they get a chance to be blessed with the truth. And I'm sorry if that's triggering, the blessed with the truth, but the reason I say blessed is you haven't got it before, and now you get it the way that they see it. Okay. You get it the way that you see it in a way that you haven't before. I keep finding myself wanting to go back to, I'm not trying to sell y'all on a full disclosure right now. I kind of feel like I'm saying, like, in order to be on this journey and to have done it the right way, you have to full disclosure. So I just want to like say that really quick here. Again, and I'll tell you the reason why is because I feel like sometimes and Alana helped me with this one, if you're the person who's been betrayed, you're often looking for a checklist of things that your person should be doing in order to the journey. And I please don't want you to put this on the checklist that has to have happened. It just really needs to get with somebody that's a professional to say, hey, how does this apply? Does it apply? I think it does. Can we just talk through it? Okay.
I'm really passionate about full disclosures because I have seen the benefits. And Brene Brown, she talks about one of the antidotes of shame is speaking it out loud and having that be met with empathy. And while the partner may not be able to have empathy, you do have trained professionals who hear you speak it out loud and who are able to have empathy and understanding. So there is some real shame healing that can happen there. For betrayed partners, where so much of your world is unknown, and then you get this information, and a lot of times it brings up like a million other questions and a lot of, okay, I thought my reality was this, then that rug gets pulled out from under me, and now I'm wondering what is real and what is up and what is down, and how do I make sense of this? And when we have trauma, the brain almost goes offline, and so part of that healing of trauma is we're reintegrating the brain. And so doing this type of process for the betrayed partner can be so healing because it allows them a space to be heard and validated. It allows them a space to get their questions answered. And I can't tell you how many betrayed partners I have when we're doing a disclosure and they're hearing this timeline and they're seeing it all laid in front of them. It's almost like they're seeing all these puzzle pieces put together, and then they're able to see things with more clarity. They're able to see patterns, and they're able to see maybe how some family of origin pieces played into it. And it does not give excuses. It gives more of an explanation. There's a big difference between an excuse and an explanation. But when we have explanations, that can help make sense of why, because that's one big question of my betrayed partners is like, why? Why did they do this? How could they do this? Why are we here? How did we get here? And the full disclosure can help kind of gain some peace in that area. And then it gives a foundation just to build a healthy relationship off of. It starts giving that foundation because in a healthy relationship, truth and transparency really has to be that foundational building block. And so this allows us a place to get the truth out there, to be transparent. Now, does that mean that the person who acted out is going to be truthful and transparent? No. And that sucks. There's no guarantees that both people are going to come to the table and be willing to put in the same effort. And so I always will tell my betrayed partners, you really have to learn, and this is something I work with them in their prep work, is we're learning how do we listen to our intuition? How do we start feeling the difference? And how do we have discernment? And what feels accurate and what feels like there's something missing? And really learning and listening, as well as working on emotional regulation, working through triggers, how to prepare for this planned traumatic event. And in Dr. Skinner's book, Treating Trauma from Sexual Betrayal, Dr. Kevin Skinner, he talks about disclosures, and they did some research, and there's some statistics in there that talk about how many people found disclosure beneficial, how many didn't. Overall, the majority of people were glad they did, even the relationships that did not end up lasting. Most relationships I've seen, the reason that they last or don't last is not because of the full disclosure. So for betrayed partners, benefits is hearing this information, having their pain heard and validated, having their questions answered, and being able to see those patterns and just have more clarity on how we got here and how this happened. So there's the benefits that they have for them. And then working with a professional creates a little bit of extra safety, that there is a professional working with their spouse to really go through and make sure we're not missing key components and ask all of those hard questions. And, okay, this is a big piece. They're doing all of the really yucky, messy, dirty work with somebody else. So with somebody else, they're verbally vomiting everything, and they're sorting through it, and they're doing the work of figuring out what is helpful for them to know and what is just harmful. And so they can sort through all of that. And so what they come and they present in the disclosure is information that you are needing to hear, or you have specifically requested to hear. And we leave out all of those extra little details that are not actually helpful and that the betrayed partner can never unhear. And so that piece also is really beneficial.
Yeah. Just touch on a really quick couple things so we can move on. Some follow-up questions. Sobriety have to be there. So we're typically looking for 90 days of no acting out behavior before we move forward to the disclosure. Just so we make sure the person who's getting truth doesn't turn around and have to try to get more truth later. Is it healthy to have a full disclosure only with your spouse, or is it necessary to have a third person involved? There's many people out there that go through the process. I'm sure a bunch on here that are farther in the journey that got truth that was just with the two of them. And it may have been useful and may have worked out, and it might not have. So yeah, there's no black or whites with that. There's just the stuff we talked about today. Hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, the question or the answer is it depends. But generally speaking, when you do have a professional who can really make sure that we're not missing pieces and that can do all the dirty, muddy type work to where what you're getting is what's helpful and beneficial. I do like having that third person involved. If that third person or people, those trained professionals, are trained.
Yeah.
A question came and said, what if they acted out a couple times in the last 2 years, but the last mistake was fairly recently? Don't hate me, but it depends. It depends on what kind of acting out and what kind of slip and what we're looking at. Sometimes it's a flat out hit the brakes. We need to just reassess and figure out where we are. But I would say ideally it would still be, generally speaking, I would still want to wait the 3 months.
Yeah.
But again, it depends on what level and what we're talking about.
Usually what happens, everybody is if somebody goes a period of time without I call it losing battles, acting out, whatever you call it, they will that first lost battle is really telling what happens right away, how they stand up, what they do differently. Because sometimes, unfortunately, a person will just be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. That's not gonna happen again. I won't do it. But there's no real change. There's no like really reflection and looking in the mirror and going like, okay, I gotta see what happened. Like I've gone a long time and now it did. How did it get here? instead of letting pain be the driver and, oh my gosh, I don't want to ever do that again. So there's a difference there, and that's where it depends coming in.
Well, yeah. And can we just talk about that
Yeah.
a little bit more? Because when there is acting out again, whether it be a single action, or there's a relapse and a pattern of them, it's how are they coming back from that? Are they, like you said, are they really doing the work to understand, and are they coming up with a new plan? That's why in the disclosure, one of the sections is your safety plan. How are you going to create safety for yourself, which in turn creates safety for your partner? Meaning, what are your own boundaries? So you're not going to get pulled into this again. Do you know what your like really safe behaviors are, your dailies that keep you healthy and keep you sober and keep you working recovery towards more emotional intelligence? Do you know what your slippery slope items are that technically a lot of people can do, but for you, those are your slippery slopes that take you back to acting out? And then what are your all out acting out? Like, we should know what each of those three categories are and be really clear with those. And your partner should know what those are. Because when you figure that out, you can let them know, hey, here's the work I've done. This is what I'm going to be working on as part of my dailies. Here's the things I've created. Like, it could be, I'm not going to use YouTube unless I have other people around. Or it could be, I'm not going to take the phone in the bathroom. Or it could be, I'm not going to emotionally connect with anyone other than my spouse. It could be whatever your own personal boundary is for your acting out and for your template. Knowing those and having those in a safety plan that your partner can see that you've done the work to figure out what you need to keep yourself safe and them safe.
I'm just reading through the chat, Alana.
Okay, so this question came in. You want to tackle this one, Luke?
Which one?
Is sexual sobriety a specific standard?
I asked for a little bit of clarification on that one. You might get it, Alana, so you can just roll with it. So go ahead.
Yeah, well, what is acting out for everybody could look different. What is okay in one couple could be totally not okay with another couple. The question is do you two as a couple have a clear definition of what is okay and what is not okay, which I'm just going to say right there, I can't tell you how many couples have different definitions and never even knew they had different definitions. So that could get messy, but we need to know. You you did it to me again. You took my question away. You need to know what that is. But now remind me of the question again, Luke. That threw me off.
Is sexual sobriety the standard?
Oh, the standard. So sexual sobriety, this could look different for different couples. And is that how it was phrased? Is sexual sobriety the standard? I don't think it was phrased like that.
You know what? I can find out. Is sexual sobriety a specific standard? That's what I meant.
Okay, thank you. A specific standard. So no, everyone's templates, everyone's histories, everyone's values are going to look different. Which is why I like working with professionals, because they help you clarify what each of those are.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Let's see. I'm gonna read this one. My husband and I were taking Lazarus lectures with Maurice. So there's a program called Life Changing Services out there, and Maurice Harker's the founder of it. And he talks about there's a place for separation where they're separated physically from each other, spouses are. So the question is, as the betrayal partner, would you recommend to ask for full disclosure from Maurice in order to get back together? Do you want to tackle that, or you want me, Alana?
If you have, I'm rereading it. So if you want to run with it, I'll jump in.
Yeah. So again, just being able to talk to a little bit, if you have some sessions with Maurice and talking about the process and how he sees it, I would highly recommend that. I don't know if you're doing any sessions with them. Again, it's not It's not like a, hey, I think you need to do a disclosure from this platform in which which we are at right now. It's not a must for reintegration after separation, for sure.
Well, and I would say to the betrayed partner, what do you feel like you need? And take time with it, because as we're talking about it here today, you might have some emotions come up as you're listening. Maybe you're working on your separation or your lectures, and maybe you have feelings come up there. Take some time with that. I will not hide that Maurice Harker himself does not believe in full disclosures. He and I have on a couple of different areas, boundaries and disclosures, we have different ideas. So he doesn't love them. And that's okay. He goes at it from a different angle. As a betrayed partner myself, having truth and transparency and having that safety for me was so foundational and paramount. And in a lot of partners I've worked with, that has been really huge. But I have also had some partners who just go, I just don't feel like that's what I need. I don't feel like that's what we need. And that's great. But that's where you and I always lean to the betrayed partner with this, because really, while the person who's acted out does benefit from it, it's really about the betrayed partner. It's really about helping them heal. It's really about creating that safety in the relationship. And so I will lean to them. And what does your gut say? What do you feel like you need? And let's look at the reasons why too, and what you're looking for. I've had some partners who come in initially and they're really just looking for us to do this so the relationship can be fixed and we can just be healed and get better. And we have to do some serious reality checking that the disclosure is not going to be that magic fix it. The disclosure is not going to make them suddenly empathetic. The disclosure is not going to suddenly heal the relationship, but it can be a really healing tool that offers some structure to help the healing move along and keep going and get that extra depth. But there's still pain post-disclosure. So maybe that actually kind of leads us in to a good part, Luke, that we haven't talked about is, what do we do after disclosure? So we have this disclosure where ideally.
Did you see that question, the last one that was posted in there?
No. Oh, what was it like for Alana after the disclosure? So Luke and I did not do a full therapeutic disclosure. We had many disclosures, but we did not do the full therapeutic disclosures. And I will tell you, I had about 4 months of repeated trauma. And I would even say just of hell, of new information coming out, of him going, oh yeah, there's this other piece. Or him talking about something that he thought he shared with me and me going, I'm sorry, what did you just say? And then all of a sudden, like going down this rabbit hole with all of these questions. And I remember there was times as he was telling me question or giving me answers, and I would just shake. Like my whole body was shaking and I was so cold, and I didn't know it at the time, but my body was having a full trauma response to the information he was giving me. But at the same time, I was like, tell me more, give me more. And so when I later learned about all of how the full disclosure works, we sat down on our own.
Can I build on that, Alana, right there, that part? So what happened was we were stumbling through this all on our own, and we'd gotten all this information out, and it was, like you all know, extremely traumatic for Alana, just extremely, she was pulling information. Finally, we found the right therapist, and he was a CSAT therapist. He said, okay, we need to do a full disclosure. Like, it's obvious what's the extent of what you've been doing, Luke. And he explained it to me, and I braced, we braced ourselves. Sorry, I said we braced ourselves for the experience. And then he went through explained that there was a polygraph after and all that kind of stuff. And I came to terms with like, this is the right thing to do for the marriage to work. And then he got into it and saw the bang up job that we did in the process of full disclosure. And I think that's where Alana's testimony that comes from, of getting to a place where we had to go through it the hard way, and also recognize that, we were ready to do it. Just don't want everybody to learn from our experiences. or want everybody to learn from our experiences.
Well, and we had written out our own timelines, and he had written out a timeline, and I had written out my own timeline of just my own trauma history. I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I didn't know that that was actually a therapeutic tool. We came out bloody and bruised. And so by the time we really learned from the therapist of this is how it could look, we had basically been through it all. But I will speak to my clients, for a lot of my clients after the disclosure, there is a period of pain. There's a period of, it's interesting because all of my, not all of my clients, the majority of them, when I've been working with the betrayed partner as my primary client, have said like, okay, that sucked. That was really hard. And I'm really glad I did it. And I learned a lot. And a lot of them, I would say, have been spiritual, which for a lot of people, even those who aren't religious, is like, how could that be spiritual? But it has been a very raw and vulnerable, but also tender experience. But after, especially the first couple of days, usually I'll say you need to plan, like, I don't want any contact for 24 hours between the two of you, and just take time to process and to grieve and to feel. And for some, they, I'll say, have a plan in place of going and being alone, but also have friends as a backup if you want to have friends or have somebody with you that you can go talk or process with. And then usually there's a few weeks after of still just kind of marinating and processing. And then we kind of get through like the worst of that. And then we continue on our healing. And so I won't sugarcoat it that you're going to walk out of there and you're going to be like skipping and being like, oh, I'm so glad I did that. Usually I'm so glad I did that. That was right. I won't say that felt good, but that was the right thing for me to do, usually is a few weeks later or a few months later.
Yeah, for sure. I want to tackle this one because I could feel some emotion behind this one. So thank you for putting this. I'm just going to read it. How much of this is for the spouse to know everything, and how much of is this for the betrayer to feel better getting it all out? Can it be made more clear that one spouse will hurt more and the other will feel better? I think it helps for both partners to know this. Alana, would you comment on that?
Well, everybody's situation is different. So I've had in some where the partner who has betrayed, who has had a ton of shame, has struggled a lot with the process. I've had some where the betrayed partner has struggled a lot with the process, but generally speaking, the person who has been betrayed, this is being hit by a truck all over again. This is trauma. It is traumatizing. And even having the trained professionals, you're still hearing some of the most painful information of your life. And there is a relief often from the person who has carried this and hid this for so many years. I remember hearing one time a quote, and they said, when it comes to infidelity or betrayal, it's like one partner comes out of the closet and the other partner gets shoved in. And one chose to come out, the other chose to get shoved in and locked, though some don't choose to come out. Maybe I shouldn't say it that way. But so what I hear even in this question, can it be made more clear that one spouse will hurt more and the other will feel better? I even hear, like, I hear some pain in that. Like, can you please like help my partner know how painful this really is? And when I say like, and I know that for those of you who have acted out, sometimes it's hard to hear this because of your own shame. And I'm hoping you'll hear this through me because I'm not your spouse. But for your spouse, for a woman myself who is betrayed, I can't even begin to describe the physical and emotional pain of getting this type of information. Like, it hurt in a way that I didn't know was physically possible. I remember thinking, I don't have enemies, but I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. I wouldn't wish this on anybody, which plays into a lot of the work that we do today, is trying to help you get through this with the least amount of extra pain and extra damage that you have to go through. Because this is a hard, difficult process, but there has been now enough research and enough understanding to know that there are specific tools that can help the process. So that's our goal is speaking up, giving you some of the training and tools that we have gained through our personal experience, but also we both do this professionally. I'm a therapist, Luke's a life coach. So we do this professionally as well, that to help you not have to have such a hard journey. It's going to be hard. It's going to be challenging, but hopefully to give you some tools to help you navigate that. So to all partners who have been betrayed, it is absolutely a traumatizing experience to get this kind of information. And it can be freeing when somebody who's known about their acting out all along comes free of it and is able to share it. That is a load that gets lifted, which is why I often see, sorry, Luke, I am talking so much tonight, but it is often why I see so quickly those who are really working their recovery feel so much better quicker than the spouse who has been betrayed. The spouse that's been betrayed, they didn't know all the details. They didn't know about all of this. So they have to get caught up and get their brain and their body and their emotions and everything wrapped around all of this past information. And there's a grief and a mourning process that has to happen. So they will take a lot longer to heal. And now I'm going to get off my soapbox. You can talk now.
I just thank
I
you.
feel so passionate about this stuff.
Thank you for the person that included that question. And I thank you for the emotion that you put with that question. I don't know if that, I don't know how that was meant to be, but I could feel the emotion in it. And so I appreciate it a lot. Okay. I don't know why, Alana, but wait, did you recommend do you recommend another disclosure if the first was not thorough or missing information? Holy moly. Okay. So I feel like we need a bumper sticker tonight that we hand everybody as you leave this webinar that says it depends. And then y'all never come back because Luke and Alana can't give you a straight answer. So yeah, I mean, I'm so sorry you keep giving that same answer. And I'm really, really, really sorry that if this was you and you did not get a thorough disclosure. I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. And I just want to say that if you're a spouse wondering if you got the truth out, you're in that situation, same thing, even if it wasn't a therapeutic full disclosure, that you're wondering if you still have truth or not. And you're traumatized, like, with the fact that it wasn't very thorough. And I'll also feel bad if you've been the person that had to drag everything out of your spouse, like Alana did with me, and drag it all out. So yeah, so just connect with us, please, on these things where we say it depends. And by the way, it doesn't need to be us. It can be anybody. Just please find somebody that's qualified, that understands this stuff. And we have resources for that. So Alana and I are advocating not just for Choose Recovery Services or life-changing services. We're just advocating for working with people that get it. Okay.
And just a reminder to go back to your intuition.
Yeah.
If your gut is really saying that there's still information I need to know, practice trusting that. And I will tell you, it's hard. It's hard. Like, that is a whole nother, like, whole night topic on that intuition piece, because there's so many layers to that. And feeling like I thought I trusted myself and I thought I trusted my partner, but just practicing listening to your gut and intuition about if you need to do more or look at it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question is this, and I think this might be the last full disclosure question. So on average, how much of the disclosure is new information, percentage, or is it more just laying it all out in a comprehensive timeline? Would you recommend sharing any new things that come up in the process before the disclosure? Yeah, so okay, Great question. Yeah, there's sometimes some new information there. It's usually just like you said, comprehensive timeline, all laid out and not in a way that's useful. But yeah, new information is appropriate and important if not all has been disclosed. And then recommend sharing new things. No, this is the hardest part, and I would have never wanted to tell Alana this, even if I was her therapist, which is, hey, yeah, if there's new information, let's have that come through the disclosure. Please allow that to be in our hands and not your hands, Alana. Like, just let us take care of that, please. And I recognize that, Alana, for you, it would have been like, no, I need to know it, and I need to know it now. What is it? I'm like pounding on my desk here because I remember those experiences not that long ago, it feels like. And it will come, truth will come, and that's what this process is for.
I think that there is some safety that's created. Like when I knew you were working with professionals, excuse me, who is helping you like get through it, I could trust in that professional. At least I hoped I could trust in the professional to help you do the work you needed to do. But before we had that professional, I was not trusting anything, and I needed that. I wanted that information. That question about how much is new, like a percentage, there's been disclosures where there's a lot of new stuff, and there's been quite a few disclosures where there's only just a few little pieces here and there. But again, like how partners respond to those little, I'm using quotations, little pieces versus the big pieces is usually fairly similar. And what's funny is I've had where going into a disclosure where I'm working with the partner who has betrayed as my primary client, and someone else is working with a betraying partner, and where this partner said, okay, I really think that this is going to upset them, and I think this will be big. And then getting into the disclosure and the part that they thought would be big, they're like, yeah, no, I mean, that sucks, but I can handle that. But this part, which wasn't even kind of on their radar, this is huge. And so then they're like trying to mentally switch gears. So again, you don't know, and you can't say what is going to be painful for the partner who has betrayed.
Absolutely. The other one that came up in here was, would you recommend a therapeutic full disclosure if you had many information pulling discussions? So that's where Alana said just, and I recognize that the person betrayed is the person that asked this question, which is just trust your gut, trust your intuition, and see if you find peace around what has been pulled from those discussions. So if you feel peace, you feel like you got it. And I recognize peace might be the crappy way for me to put that. If you feel like, okay, no, I've gotten truth, just pay attention to that. Okay. Let's see. Does the healing process for the betrayed take less time if it's done in a therapeutic disclosure as to the drip method? I don't know. I think the drip method in theory just comes out over a longer period of time, right? So once you finally get the right last one, how do you know that you got the truth? I don't know. It's just more clunky. Go ahead, Lonnie.
Well, yeah. And what happens is the betrayed partner, even more so, is always waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for new information. Because a lot of times with the drip method, it's when they're least expecting it, or they just start getting comfortable and then something else comes out again. And so it gets harder and harder to trust and to let your body relax, because you never know when you're going to get new information. You never know what to expect. So then you almost get in this like constant state where our cortisol levels are always high and we're always in fight, flight, or freeze, because we never know when something's coming. So do I think that it takes less time? I'm going to say yes. It depends. I'm going to say yes, but less time, especially if you're a partner who is betrayed. less time, you're not going to notice, because no matter how fast or slow you think it's going to go, it's always going to take longer. That part of the process, the patience required for yourself, and if you're the partner who has betrayed for your spouse, that is so crucial, is giving them the time and space they need to heal. And it will always take longer than you think it should.
Yep.
Some partners, I have had partners who have acted out, who after only a couple of months, they're like, well, why isn't she better? Why isn't this getting better? And the last thing they want to hear is, oh gosh, we're like in the baby stages. We got a long way to go. It's the last thing they want to hear, because it's so hard in the beginning. And it can absolutely get better. And day one does not have to look like day 600 or 1200, but you got to be in it for the long haul. This type of work, you have to be in it for the long haul.
This one said, can you please address that disclosure is not always a one and done? A lot of the time, betraying partners are good at compartmentalizing, so that stuff is pretty buried. Yeah, for sure. You just nailed it. Thank you for making that comment, and just wanted to read it so everybody else could hear it. Love to say that you leave a disclosure and then just like, you got everything, nothing ever comes up. So that's not a reason to not do a disclosure, is you're not going to get everything. But yeah, there is so much content, right? So much content. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're all good now and we never have to have a conversation again. Oh yeah, never have to have a conversation again. That means if you're the person that's betraying, like me, I can't go to Alana and say, hey, remember we did the full disclosure? We just don't need to talk about the stuff anymore. So that's not at all true. Okay.
That door is forever open. If we're 8.5 years, and if I all of a sudden had a random question come up and I said, hey, I just thought of this, can you answer this? That door is never closed. Also, this kind of reminds me, we didn't talk so much about after disclosure. For some couples, we really like to start some couples work. Now, couples work after betrayal is not typical couples work, where it's like, well, what did you do wrong? What did you do wrong? Let's weigh them all together. It's more of, how do we take this person who's been so betrayed and they're in so much pain in their trauma? How do we help the partner who's betrayed learn how to hold that pain and learn how to make space for it and learn how to have empathy, vulnerability, transparency, and humility? And so some couples will go into couples work after the disclosure, and early couples work is what we call it. And we'll work on some of that early couples work while maintaining that we still are doing our individual work. Other couples, we need more time, and we'll continue our individual work. Now just having this additional knowledge, and then eventually, ideally, we want to work towards where we can do that early couples work.
Yep. So let's go to the top, Alana, to make sure we hit on a couple of these. So one of the questions that came up was, it's not around disclosure. So if you're like, that would be really nice to hear something about besides disclosure, here you go. So can you please address some of the misnomers of fears that come up around out of home separation? By the way, I had to Google misnomers in the dictionary thing over here. So misnomers is a wrong or inaccurate name or designation. So this out of home separation stuff, yeah, I think one of the biggest things is that out of separation is the end. Like, it's over. And it's not. The separation is not a bad thing. It does not mean it's the end. It does not mean, that your marriage is over. However, if you would like to go ahead and predict that truth, I know I'm being a little cold and sarcastic right now, and if you want to predict that truth and make it the end, you can. Okay. It doesn't have to be. What it just means is you have two people that are hurting very badly. I'll stick with the betrayed for a second, that is hurting, and to be around their spouse all the time there's too many triggers and there needs to be some space so there can be less triggers and there can be more
Healing.
emotional safety, which will allow the healing to happen. So, and usually it's funny because often what I experience, it's not funny at all. What the man experiences like, okay, I'm being rejected. She doesn't want me, like, get out of the house, over. But once he gets out of that environment, he feels a sense of relief too, because now he can just focus on his work that needs to be done. So it doesn't, that's probably the biggest one that comes up as far as inaccurate in what people believe about separation. Let's see. I feel like we could probably pull more into that. So thank you for asking that.
I remember when we first separated, it was very early in recovery, and Luke went to all of his coworkers and his family, and he said he was feeling very rejected and very himself, having a hard time. I did not have a whole lot. I had zero empathy for that because I was in a whole heck of a lot of pain. And, but I remember him telling all of these people that I had kicked him out. And I sent him, I don't know if it was a text or an email, but I said, let me be very, very clear, is I did not kick you out. I don't want you to not be gone. It is because of your choices. You left our family. You left our house. And when we have a separation, I do see a lot of times the betrayed partner really needs space to not always be in fight, flight, or freeze. They need space for their body to be able to come down so they can start thinking and they can start processing and they can start healing. And if we have those triggers nonstop and they're constantly in a fight, flight, or freeze, that does make it sometimes really hard to do the work. But when the partner who is betrayed is so caught up with their own shame and their own feeling of rejection, and they can't support their partner and what they need, that makes it really difficult. And so for partners who have betrayed, if your partner is asking for a separation, I love, Luke, that you kind of called him out in a gentle, I believe, gentle way, is don't make it about you. See your partner's pain and see what it is. And even when Luke, I told him probably like a year and a half in, I wanted a divorce. And it was because I was still in so much pain and I just wanted the pain to be over with. And that was the only way I could think of it at the time. And the way he responded made such a difference. He said to me something along the lines, I'm paraphrasing, but Alana, I love you and I want you to heal. And whatever that is that you need to heal, I don't want a divorce. I don't like this, but I love you and I will support you in what you need. And I knew in that moment, and I say that moment, but in that period of time, I knew that he did not want that. And he was able to put what I needed above his own needs, which through sexual acting out, through addiction, through infidelity, it was not about what I needed. It was about what he wanted in the moment. So when he was able to now show up for me and put himself aside to create safety so I could heal, that said a lot. And that was very, very healing.
Yeah. So we're gonna probably only go for a couple more minutes. So if we didn't get to your question, we will build it in for sure into the next one. I recognize with the amount of things we've had come in, there's so much to be talking about, especially when we start a new topic. There's a lot of things that come in. So thank you for your patience in the process of this experience. Let's see.
Can you tackle the question on your name since I brought it up at the beginning?
Sure. I know the guy that answers this question. So yeah, so when the crap hit the fan, I was in the process. We lived in Washington and we went through separation. I was known by Lucas then. And then we had the opportunity. It was very hard and scary for our family. We moved to Las Vegas, which is hilarious. Not hilarious if you this might be triggering, not hilarious. It's hilarious to us now, but out of any place to move to in the entire country for a porn addict, we moved to Las Vegas, and I wanted a fresh start. And I remember like, I just don't want anything of my old life. I want everything new. And I'm like, you know what? I want to go be called Luke. And I still remember talking to I got a new job, and I remember talking to my boss that I'd been interviewing the whole time. And it was Lucas. And he goes, and I just said, as I got hired, I said, do you mind if you just call me Luke? And he's like, sure. So just started going by Luke from there on out. Just a new life. That was it. And it solved all the problems.
It did not solve all the problems. But it's funny because I really did start to see Luke as the man who was trying to learn and grow and work recovery. And there was a season where if anyone called him Lucas, that was really triggering for me. It was really uncomfortable because in my brain, I separated of like addict. I don't call him addict anymore, but at the time it was addict Lucas, Luke who is trying. And I really had to separate those so I could help me see what he was doing in the moment. Now I don't care, but
yeah,
there was a lot to that name for a lot of years for us.
For sure. There still is some for me. Okay, Alana, I think we should probably wrap up unless you got something else that you feel like you want to be hitting on.
There's still some really good questions, and I'm sorry for those we didn't get to your questions, but I will save those so we can make sure that we tackle those next month. We do these once a month. It's funny because we do these, and then every time we do them, we get these like, why aren't you doing more of these? Or why isn't there couples courses or things we can do more of? And we would love to. Well, we're working on building more time into our schedules. That is our goal someday. But for now, we do love having this place where you can come together. And as always, as we wrap up, I just want to be so sensitive to, depending on where you're at, sometimes things that either of us say can be really hard and really triggering, emotionally triggering. It can bring up a lot of feelings. And so just kind of check yourself on how you're emotionally doing, what's coming up. And if there's enough safety in the relationship to talk about it, these can spring some really good conversations. Some months our feedback is like, man, that sucked. There are some hard stuff you said, and we did not like that. And we had some really good discussions off of it that we probably needed to have. And so if you can, and if there's safety in the relationship to talk about some of these things. And we are huge proponents of truth and transparency. Oh, which reminds me, Luke, not podcast. We do have a podcast. Webinar. Luke and I did a webinar that's on the website about truth and transparency. And so you can go to chooserecoveryservices.com if you want to listen to that, because that goes more in depth just on what to share, how to share it, what truth and transparency actually looks like. So there's just never enough time to share all the information.
And again, it warms our heart to see so many of you guys' names that we know, and you blessed our lives and touched us. So every single person on this list, like, please, I don't know if it's like when you're in church or somewhere and everybody says, oh, I love you. And you're like, you don't even know me. How do you love me? But we know you're here and you're fighting really, really hard. And we know for the last couple of these, it's been a triggering experience being here. So no matter what your experiences was, we're here with you. And just thank you for spending the time with us. And again, reach out and anything that you need. All right. Have a good evening.